Oh, Victor, fantastic. What a day today. World Refugee Sabbath. Wow.
And it's great. It's good to be with you again. We like doing this every year, to be somewhere where refugees are being helped, to tell their story, to share with them. We were doing that this morning.
Yes, we were in the Belgrade at ADRA Community Centre. We met people. Wow.
And we heard their stories, and we heard what the leaders here are doing, a fantastic job. This afternoon in this program, we're going back into the centre, which is just down the road here.
But not only, we will be around the world.
Around the world, exactly, from all sorts of places where committed people are trying to help those that need help, but we're also going to find out that some of those that needed help are now giving help themselves. So a time of real community.
Yes, so come with us. We will make a huge journey.
Let's go and see what's happening.
First part this time for me. I hope that not the last.
and what a blessing to be with you again. Of course, it's good. Yes. Welcome. So,
thank you very much.
Okay, we can go in.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So, Igor, we are here in your community centre, ADRA Serbia, looking after refugees and migrants. Tell me, what really is the purpose for this centre being here?
It was established in January 2017 in order to respond to needs of migrants and refugees, as you said, who are presently accommodated in government facility in relative proximity, like 6 kilometers from here. There are between 400 to up to 1,000, depends on the time of season during the year of them in that facility, government facility. But what's missing and what has been missing from the very start was access to basic rights they must have access to, especially given the fact that most of them are spending up to 18 months or even more in Serbia, considering whether to continue the journey toward other countries in Europe or to stay here.
Yeah, because some have decided to actually settle here.
Yes, well, a few of them, but it may change. So access to formal education, access to normal everyday activities for of different kinds, which normalize life, but also keep the capacities, human capacity of knowledge of skills not dropping, because if they are passive, like they are frequently in these government centers, it's detrimental to their health, to their overall life skills, so forth. So we try to push them not to drop and to be developed.
And that's what came through very strongly this morning, that they feel empowered by coming here. This has actually become a family for them, and actually has become a family for the staff that work here as well.
Definitely, and it's so natural and so beautiful. So without it, I think the impact could not be possible to make, especially given the fact that all of us come to places and to people we naturally are attracted to. So they keep coming to these programs, and the impact is there in their life because they are regularly attending, up to 80 or even 100 of them daily.
And I guess this grew out of ADRA Serbia's involvement when the refugee crisis really started, and you had tens of thousands of people passing through, and you were helping just with very basic things then, and now the need has changed.
That's right, yes. Back then it was people coming in large numbers, 10,000 of them daily even, but then quickly continuing the journey after few days or even few hours. Now they are stranded, and we learned a lot from that phase, so we were able to adapt, I think.
And so from that need, adaptation is a very important word. I think family is a very important word. And it's been a blessing actually to be here in this centre this morning. And now we're here again. We're in the centre this afternoon, and we're travelling not just in Serbia, but we're going to travel, Corrado?
Oh, around the world, a lot of countries in Africa, Asia, Europe, of course. But before to start this journey, let's present the panel.
Yes, good afternoon, Corrado and Victor. I'm João Martins. I'm very happy to be here and to be present in this important program that we are having here in Serbia. It's a privilege to be with all of you, and we are very thankful for all the work that you are doing here, and I'm looking forward for all the videos and all the projects that we are going to be visiting next.
And just tell us who you are. João Martins, but what do you do?
Oh yes, sorry. I am executive director of ADRA Europe, so I work in Brussels, and I have the privilege of leading 30 European offices, so in this region in Europe.
Well, hi everybody. I'm Jonathan Duffy, the president of ADRA International, and this whole issue of refugees, internally displaced people, has a special place in my heart. As you can imagine, as a president of ADRA, I get to travel to many of the areas, and I've seen the communities where these people started their journey, and I've seen the quality of life that they had, and then the devastation of what they've lost. And yet, as we will see this afternoon, the hope that's been restored through many centres like the one that we're in now. And it gives me a great privilege and an honour to be able to be the president of ADRA and to bring hope to these people.
Jonathan, just say us the acronym ADRA. What means ADRA?
Sure. So ADRA is the Adventist Development and Relief Agency. It is the humanitarian arm of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Thank you.
My name is Igor Mitrovic, and I'm the country director of this ADRA Serbia office. And I have the privilege to work with these great people. Some of them are sitting the second row behind us. Commitment and love and professionalism and the team spirit are simply, well, I feel embarrassed because I cannot match that level. I'm honest now, so it's great to be part of this great team.
And Victor, in this panel, other people will have to stay with us. For example, the Worldwide Church, Seventh-day Adventist Church President, Ted Wilson, and both European President, Pastor Rafat Kamal and Mario Brito. They are not with us, but they send us their greetings.
What an important aspect in the Christian's life, to help people. Just as that beautiful story that Jesus told about the Good Samaritan, helping people and not giving any thought to where they're from, what language they speak, what tribe they come from, what socioeconomic level, what education level. No, everyone who is in need is your neighbor. As we celebrate International Refugee Day, as you participate in knowing how best to relate to those with whom you come in contact with, wherever you might be, across Europe, across the world, wherever it is, someone is in need, that person is your neighbor.
Our church has been doing a lot to help the refugees through ADRA, Adventist Help, local churches, various agencies have been working. We are happy with what has been done, but we would like to encourage all to be involved. The Bible clearly says that we have to have attention to the refugees, to the ones that are fragile, that are uprooted, that we may demonstrate them the same love, the same concern that Christ had for the ones that were suffering.
Jesus empowers you through His Holy Spirit to be Christ-like and to help people physically, mentally, socially, and spiritually, following in the footsteps of Jesus.
65 million people, they're forced out of their homes. They're displaced. If you take this number and put it in one nation, they will be the 21st largest nation on earth. We have an opportunity to reach to these marginalized people. I'm standing here in Jerusalem, perhaps some consider the center of the world, where people came from every part of the world to be here. And Jesus Christ was here. He himself was also forced, but he was on a mission. He was forced out of his home to come here to be on a mission to restore the dignity, the integrity of human beings, to restore people to the Father and to himself. And I appeal to you on the 16th of June to bring a blessing, the blessing of Jesus Christ. Where he didn't only speak, but he spoke and he healed. He spoke and he touched. He spoke and he acted. He was the gospel in boots. He set the perfect example for us. Please, please, take the 16th of June, Refugee Day, a very special day on that Sabbath, and do something to help some of these people who have been marginalized, who have been forced out of their homes. They need our help. May God bless you.
So we'll be around the country in Europe, Asia, Africa. But this journey started some time ago, Victor, 2 years ago. This was the first Sabbath, World Refugee Sabbath, 2016, yes. This was in...
We were in Germany, we were in Greece and then in Dunkirk.
And then in Dunkirk, yes. So we will have now a little resume of the the previous edition of this special World Refugee Sabbath in Dunkirk and in Castelvolturno, Italy. So have a look of this resume.
You can't describe the feeling. It was too awful because he's alone here without any family.
Assad is a Yazidi from Iraq. He fled ISIS-held territory. He asks, if you'd seen 500 people killed in front of you, how would you feel?
Everyone pitches in and helps, and that is the great thing.
The needs of these people are completely different than the regular basis. They need medical assistance, but they also need people to be kind to them and talk to them.
Your heart does bleed for this people, and it's important for us as humanitarians, as Christians, to try and help them.
I introduce you to Brighton and Hove Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Hi Victor, can you hear me?
Good morning, Brixton Church. Happy Sabbath to you. I'm here, not in church, not worshipping this morning, but I'm actually with a congregation which is about the same size as yours.
A European delegation of the Seventh-day Adventist Church visited Lampedusa, considered to be the door of Europe for migrants coming mainly from sub-Saharan countries. These migrants are looking for a shelter, a job, but more than that, they are looking to live a normal life, the life that they were losing in their countries. We moved to Castelvolturno to meet those who are benefiting from the ADRA Italy project.
Though I knew it was risky, but I never knew it's going to be kind of so rough. So I thought of it, I said, God, if you can take me through the sea to Italy, I hope I'm going to get a better life in Italy.
Last year I showed you my passport on World Refugee Day. I was in Greece and there were challenges with the refugees from there. I was hoping that would be the only time I would need to do it, but it's another Refugee Day. This time I'm in Italy and I'm with wonderful people that have come across the Mediterranean, and they have a story to tell that has actually considerably moved me as we've gone through today. You need to hear their story and share their experience.
And that was the last 2 years. I'm actually quite moved just by watching those reports. And it's our third World Refugee Sabbath, and the story still has to go on. What's happening today? And so we're going to go on some journeys now. And our very first journey, we're going to go to Austria, where people have made it across the Balkans, have made it actually to the country they want to get to. And there's needs there. How is the church fulfilling those needs?
Wir stehen hier im Stadtzentrum von Mistelbach, einer Stadt im Nordosten Österreichs, 25 Kilometer von Tschechien und von der Slowakei entfernt. Hinter mir findet gerade die Lebensmittelausgabe für Flüchtlinge statt. 2015 und 2016 kamen auch hier in Mistelbach viele Flüchtlingsfamilien an und die Stadt hat nach freiwilligen Helfern gesucht, um die Familien in die Gesellschaft zu integrieren und auch zu versorgen. Hier im Zentrum bekommen die Besucher gegen einen kleinen Unkostenbeitrag Lebensmittel, Kleidungsstücke und auch Hygieneartikel.
Im Frühjahr 2015 haben wir damit begonnen, Kinderkleider zu tauschen. Auf dem Höhepunkt der Flüchtlingskrise ist die Stadträtin für Soziales an uns herangetreten und hat uns gefragt, ob wir auch Asylbewerberfamilien mit Kleidung versorgen können. Seit April 2017 arbeiten wir mit Bewegung Mitmensch zusammen. Wir bieten jetzt auch einmal in der Woche eine Lebensmittelausgabe an und versorgen damit ca. 150 Personen.
Ja, ich bin Moula Khadimi, ich komme aus Afghanistan. Ich komme gerne jede Woche helfen.
Zweimal in der Woche holen ehrenamtliche Mitarbeiter der Bewegung Mitmensch Lebensmittel von Geschäften ab, die am folgenden Tag nicht mehr verkauft werden dürfen, und bringen diese in die Räumlichkeiten der Kirche der 7. Tagsadventisten in Mistelbach, wo diese Lebensmittel vorsortiert werden und bereitgestellt.
Im November 2017 hat das Team hier oben im Stockwerk die ADRA Fundgrube eröffnet. Die Fundgrube kann man sich als eine Art Second-Hand-Laden vorstellen, in dem hochwertige Kleidung, aber auch Spielzeug und Haushaltsartikel gegen eine Spende abgegeben werden. Unser Anliegen ist es, Menschen zu dienen, damit sie so leben können, wie Gott es ursprünglich beabsichtigt hat. Ein Leben, wo sie ihr volles Potenzial ausschöpfen können, wo sie Gerechtigkeit, Mitgefühl und Liebe erleben und das auch an andere Menschen weitergeben können.
Thousand people crossed the Balkans from the south to arrive in Austria, you said, Victor. Well, and in Austria we saw now which kind of initiative. How important is an initiative like this, Joao?
Well, most of these individuals that are arriving to our countries in Europe, they don't have any kind of social connection, any friends, any kind of relationship. So they need to start from zero. And we as ADRA, we as a church, we have a word to speak on that. And I think the example that we have just seen of Austria is showing us that we need to be relevant, and we need to be a blessing, and we need to be the connection that these persons that are arriving to our borders, inside our borders, that they need. And so, yeah, I'm amazed with what is going on in Austria and in some other countries as well. It's very important that we can open our arms and follow actually the example of Jesus of receiving all of those that come to us.
Do you have just a reaction, Jonathan?
Sure. You know, I always sort of like to personalize it a little bit, and I think, well, how would I feel if it was me? And when I get to know these people, look at what they've lost and look at where they are, I try and put myself in that situation. Imagine the point of desperation that someone giving you a coat is a life-saving event, or somebody just giving you a toothbrush and able to clean your teeth or deodorant so you don't smell yourself. Very basic things which we take for granted, but they become so significant. And to me, it just reminds me of how much has been lost, and how much just little acts of kindness actually make a difference to people, and it challenges me to be able to do more.
And I suppose coming in from that, one of the things we've learned as we've met, and we use the phrase these people, but they're actually our people, because today's business person may be tomorrow's refugee. The situation suddenly changes. So I'd actually like to jump now from where we've been in Austria to the top end of Europe, because Sweden is another of those destinations that the refugees were actually quite keen to get to. And in Gothenburg, the Seventh-day Adventist Church there recognized people were just coming into the railway station and had nowhere to go. And so they opened the church doors, and people started sleeping in the church. And there's one gentleman there, Per Carlson. He is an eye surgeon, he's a consultant, he's a specialist, and he just felt, along with others, we need to do something for these people. So let's hear Per's journey himself as to why he got involved.
My name is Per Karlsson and I'm a member of the Adventist Church in Gothenburg in Sweden. Well, we had a situation in the autumn of 2015 where lots of people were coming into Sweden, and especially this part of Sweden, and people were finding themselves in the streets, not having anywhere to sleep, and we just started talking about that. We should really do something in the church, and then one day I was phoned by one of the responsible people here in the church, and they said, "We have people coming now. Could you come and take care of them?" And I said, "Okay, yeah." That's how I got involved. It just seemed natural. I mean, I had the opportunity to do it, and there was the need, the people who had nowhere to go, and so we just met that demand. It felt natural. Well, first we provided somewhere for them, a shelter for the night. So that was how we started out, and it was there were lots of people coming through. They were traveling on from here, going in all kinds of directions, but they needed a shelter for the night, and we provided that, a bed, an air mattress usually, and we had lots of people staying over every night, and then most of them went the next morning, and we prepared some food for them, breakfast before they went, and talked to them, of course. That's the first thing we did. And many people actually said that since they had been on their way, this was the first time they met a friendly reception, really. And that made an impression on me that we could actually do that for people. Mm. I mean, when you open up to other people, when you meet other people, you always get something back. So I mean, it's a sort of mutual thing that you can give something to somebody and they can give something back. And I think it's been a great opportunity to get to know other people, because some of these people stayed longer time and we really got to develop a relation with them. Well, I think that it's made me more aware of the situation around the world. When you get to know people who have actually experienced being refugees, it's easier to understand the situation than if you just see it on television. It makes it more personal, it comes nearer, and in that way it's changed my life more. Even I also went down to a trip to Greece and worked for just a short time receiving refugees, and that made it even more close. I think some people think that you have to make a political statement or something by working with the refugees, but you don't. I say these people are here now, so it's an opportunity to do something for people who are actually placed in our way. There are so many people coming from countries we could never have any contact with, and we've had the opportunity to present the gospel for them, and it's really been something we couldn't have done otherwise. So I think we should use the opportunity. Yeah. If every Swede, every established Swede should know 2 people newly arrived by name, that would so much help the whole situation of integration. So just think that if you don't know 2 people that you can name, there's a task for you. Yeah.
2 people you can name, getting involved, getting into the journey. You know, for someone that's a top eye consultant, and he's kind of given of his life just some very simple things, and he's not alone. There's much more we could say about that church in Gothenburg and what they've done, but we can't tell everything. And there's other churches in Sweden where they've opened up, they've taught children how to ski. Can you imagine coming from some really hot countries and you learn how to ski, and they find the skis, they find the clothes for them, and they're out there, they're camping and doing all sorts of activities. You watch something like this, Jonathan, it can't do anything but touch your heart.
No, it can't. And, you know, I think if we look historically, churches have often been places of refuge for people. And you look at how simple it is. It didn't take a great deal of resources. It just took a willingness and an openness to use the resources that we already have. And the greatest resource is our own selves, and just to open ourselves up to the compassion for other people. And the amazing thing is that when we do that, we are blessed by friendship. That as we get to know people, there's very few people in the world that if you take the time to talk, to get to know them, to build a relationship, that you can't find many things in common. And really that is what people are missing. They're missing the human touch. And just to be able to provide that, and I think of the challenge of us, of the many congregations that we have around the world, as we've already said, there's 65 million people currently displaced. Imagine if all our churches became refuges to people in need, to those who are desperate, to those who are down on their luck. Imagine the impact that we could have around the world.
And I suppose, taking from what he said, if all of us just found 2 people to talk to befriend, that would be something. And well, we've got a lovely big ADRA logo here. That was just a local church initiative. Let's do something. Okay, we are going to jump to ADRA now, and we're going to leap out of Europe for a few minutes. We're going to go to South Sudan, or actually to Uganda, where the displaced people from South Sudan have gone. We're going to give you an ADRA report, and then straight from that, the very personal testimony of a good friend of mine from Canada who traveled to Uganda to see what was happening. And I just said, put your phone in front of your face and give me your reaction. So you'll get that. 2 reports for you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Stan
8.
Jensen.
Yeah,
I'm
excellent.
the communication director for the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Canada. This morning I woke up in my house. I had a clean sheets, clean blankets. I had a fresh supply of food. I didn't have to worry about water. I could connect with my relatives and I could come and go as I pleased. Not all people are able to do that this morning. The past 2 years, Blossom and I have traveled to the West Nile region of Eastern Africa 2 or 3 times. What we saw there were things you don't want to see. What we heard were things you don't want to hear. We heard boys and girls talk about how they saw their mothers and fathers violated and their siblings killed. It still grips my heart as I recall one mother's story of taking her 2-month-old child to the clinic for the checkup, and she came out and her town was under siege. People were doing recreational killing of her co-workers, of her family members, of her local community. She ran for the forest and she walked 4 or 5 days with her little baby. She ran out of milk and the food supply was very sparse. All the while she prayed that God would forgive her and that God would protect the 4 children she had left behind, and that she feared that they would think that their mother abandoned them. Shortly after she landed at a safe village, she saw her husband and her 4 children showed up. God had answered her prayers. And thanks to ADRA, there was now a food supply and there were some staples. ADRA helped them to get resettled. They gave them a tent and some cooking utilities. Not much, but when that is what you need, that is what ADRA gave them. In other camps in Uganda, we saw an organized team providing food, providing latrines, providing basic education, helping them to get resettled as much as they could into one of the worst situations anybody could ever fear in their life, anybody could ever have in their life. ADRA is one of those organizations that make us proud of our church. More importantly, we saw that they had hope because there were people that cared and people were providing for their basic needs. One of the most interesting things that I saw was not in the camps, but rather was on Uganda television, where they interviewed some of the farmers who had to give up their land for these 1.3 million refugees. And they were asked about it because they're not going to get the land back, if they get it back, for 20 or 25 years. It's been in their family for generations. And they said clearly, we would want them to do that for us if we were in the same situation. We can learn a lot from them. We can learn a lot.
Stan is quite a character, as you could see in that clip. He even carries this little toy donkey with him that he calls Blossom. He's addicted to Marmite and he makes jokes about it. But the children there in Uganda really appreciated that humor, but also the very seriousness. We saw the emotion, the story, Igor, became very, very personal. Do you find that as you're working with families, with groups here, it comes into your heart?
Well, all other workers working anywhere with these kinds of people and friends face these stories sooner or later. I may be the last one from our group, from our staff, to talk about it. But what I understand is people open their hearts and even deepest traumas only after they are really sure that the person across is kind of worthy of the trust. And then you understand, I guess, for the first time, how deep the wounds go and how these people going through maybe a very short, traumatic, unimaginable events, those few hours change their life forever. And I think it flows over as it should be. The trauma, I think, is shared with others, and I know that humanitarian workers are maybe one of those who goes through trauma as well, because it infects them, and it should be like this. I think taking the burdens of each other. And in one period, we really took this very seriously and had psychological support to our workers as well. It became very difficult to work but also, if I can say, this is the highest honor and blessing one can take, just to share these stories and be part of the healing process as well.
It's the balance, isn't it? And it's how you interact within that balance. Because I remember when I was in one of the camps in Greece, and there'd been a warning. I was in the ADRA kind of team meeting in the morning, and they were saying, please don't touch any of the people because there's scabies on the campsite, and so you mustn't touch them because you will get infected, and then when you come back, you put all your clothes in the bin and you have a shower and so on. And then I'm working actually with a Serbian interpreter, Lina, and she's there working with children. And how do you work with children without touching them? When they come up to you and they want to wrap their arms around your leg, how do you say no to them? So, Corrado and I, we were both there.
Yes, and she was touched, and she did. She was with the children. She didn't want around her. You cannot say, don't touch me, or I cannot touch you. The best way to show how we love them is to stay with them, to touch them. But this was a challenge, of course.
It was a challenge, and actually both of us ended up hugging children as well.
Yes, we said,
what do you do? Yes, you need to know that Corrado and I are both granddads, and somehow,
we have, we can.
Children have. We'd better get serious again. I think it's time. Jonathan Duffy is here with us, and one of his roles as the head of ADRA is to promote the good things that ADRA is doing. So we're going to hear an ADRA promotion, and then we're going to travel down into Asia and see one of the major things, one of the major crises of the last year, and what ADRA is doing to help.
It's very challenging, it's very confronting to be thrown into these circumstances, to see people in need, to look into their eyes, to realize that when I look into their eyes, I look into the face of God as great resources. And I thank you for being one of those resources that He's provided us with. Your gifts, your donations mean a lot to these people. It's life-saving, it's life-giving. To realize that there are people who want to give them a refuge, people who want to give them love, people who want to give them hope. And I thank you for being part of that and bringing hope to these people today.
The Rohingya are a stateless Indo-Aryan ethnic body, many of whom are Muslim. They're called the most persecuted people in the world. Since August of 2017, more than 500,000 Rohingya have flooded into Bangladesh. Many are women and children. The Adventist Development and Relief Agency, or ADRA, has been on the ground to help in this horrific situation. People sat down with Elizabeth Tamanko, who recently came back from Cox's Bazar, where many of the Rohingya are placed.
The Rohingya have faced several military crackdowns in Myanmar since the late 70s, the largest and most recent of which started on August 25th of last year. Thousands of people were killed, many were injured, tortured, raped, their land and villages and homes were burned down. And those who survived, hundreds of thousands fled for their lives and crossed the border, across the river into neighboring Bangladesh. I had the opportunity to spend several weeks in Bangladesh and in some of the camps late last year, about 2 months into the conflict, and it's quite overwhelming. It's really hard to really get a sense of it until you're there and you visit. The camps literally go on as far as the eye can see. Very congested conditions, very rudimentary makeshift shelters, dirt roads, tons of kids running around, tons of people overall, very crowded conditions. I mean, if you can imagine moving 1 million people into a virtually empty area and then trying to provide all the basic needs for them, some of that's been accomplished, but there's still a lot of infrastructure that's lacking. ADRA's been working in Bangladesh since the early 70s. when Bangladesh gained independence from Pakistan and became an independent country. And ADRA has been involved in virtually every major conflict and natural disaster since then. With this major influx, ADRA was again one of the first organizations to respond. So since September of 2017, ADRA has been able to provide emergency food rations to about 50,000 individuals. We're also providing emergency shelter, basic household items, hygiene items, and support for camp infrastructure for thousands more people. And ADRA continues to work in preparation for this year's monsoon season, and we have ongoing programs that will continue at least until the middle of next year. ADRA, as a worldwide organization and as the humanitarian arm of the Adventist Church, believes that everybody, regardless of nationality, religion, gender, political affiliation, regardless of any of that, deserves the right to basic care, essential services, and goods. And so ADRA is going to continue to work in the Rohingya camps, helping to meet those basic needs of individuals who've gone through such immense trauma already and who deserve the right to live and to have those services met.
Jonathan, we saw you interacting with the children there. We saw a lovely view of your back walking down the footpath.
It's better than the front.
But you obviously got involved in that story. Give me an on-the-ground feel for what it was like.
Look, for the next 20 seconds, I'm going to talk to adults, so cover the ears of your children, because I want you to understand the trauma of this. So as I spoke to them, they described to me the fact that helicopter gunships came in, that just started shooting up nearby villages. Soldiers approached the village. They were throwing children in the air, spearing them with their bayonets. Women were being dragged away, raped and murdered. And people could see all of this happening if they were in the field or maybe only half a kilometre away in another village, and they ran. I mean, they ran. They had no time to get anything. It was just, get out of here or you're going to be next. And so they run across the border and they arrive here in the middle of this. And earlier you said something about a business person. Imagine if you're a business person and you lost everything. And I spoke to one of the families, and he was a business person. He had a small store. He had a comfortable lifestyle. He had a 2-story house. He had 2 bathrooms. He was his wife and 2 children, and they shared the house with 2 bathrooms. Now they're in a shelter, which we've been able to provide them with materials with, but it's just bamboo sticks and plastic, a mat to go across the floor. They share a bathroom instead of a family of 4 sharing 2 bathrooms. It's 1 bathroom for every 550 people. And they're just stuck there. They have no livelihood. And it's just devastating. And you know, I look at the logistics of it. There's different camps. One of the camps I visited is on the coastal area. We can't drill and put down a well because the water's too saline. There's a little bit of a stream that in the rainy season it runs and we can pipe some water in, but the rest of the time we have to ship it in. Can you imagine the logistics of shipping in, trucking in water for 100,000 people? There's not a lot of leftover water for hygiene or for washing or for other things. And yet when I spoke to the people, the number one thing I said, what is it that you want most? The number one thing is they said, we want to belong somewhere. Yes. We want to have an identity. We want to have citizenship. You know, we could never gain citizenship where we were, and we want citizenship. We want to feel like we're welcome and we belong.
It's interesting you say that, because on my Facebook page this week, when, you know, I was promoting this day and the program we were going to do, somebody posted on there, what we actually need to do is to just prepare for the people to go back home again. Here's a situation where that really can't happen, and if it does happen, it'll happen a second time. How do you react to people, to my friends, in fact, that are saying that to me? Okay, ADRA does its thing, but then as soon as possible, let's just send them back home.
I mean, it's challenging. There's a lot of political issues. There's a lot of cultural issues. There's a lot of historical issues that have led to people being isolated in the way that the Rohingya people have. And their desire would be to go back and gain citizenship within the community in which they are. But that takes a lot of negotiations. So we often think of the logistical issues of food, shelter, and other factors. But the issues of state, of the ability to own land, to be able to have the opportunity to be able to create an enterprise, those are often rights that are taken away from people, along, of course, with the opportunity for education, and a whole generation gets lost because children, you know, when they migrate, don't have the opportunity to participate in education. So it's a devastating factor that isn't just a short-term emergency, it becomes a long-term intervention.
And it's, of course, difficult because in England, in fact, right next to our head office in England, we met with Syrian refugees that had been moved actually from Lebanon to England. And actually they were saying, oh, we would like to go back home. We wish we could be back home. But home at the moment is just a bombed streets with empty shells. And so the story is not that easy. Maybe we need to start looking at the Middle East.
We had the same experience 2 years ago when we met some refugees in Germany. We were in this center, we talked with them, and finally we asked them, but which is your dream? What do you like to do? Your vision? They said, back home. We don't want to stay here, back home. But they have to decide to go back home. No, we have not to push them back home. They are there, they are here.
I think sometimes we forget that they had a life before all of this displacement.
Yes.
And they had a community, they had land, you know, they had livelihoods, they had education. We want to dehumanize it so that we can feel distanced from it, as if these are people who have had nothing and have come from nothing. And whatever we give them is a great privilege for them to receive. But actually they have lost much, and their desire to return home and see their communities restored is a very natural thing, the same as I would if I was separated from Australia and I wanted to go back to Australia. It's exactly the same circumstances, so we need to think of them in the same light as we would think of it ourselves.
Yes, my question is, which color has the dignity? Which color has the respect? Because maybe they say, we don't belong to your ethnic group and we have to go back. So who has the authority to say back?
Yeah, we can't answer that question today, but we can look now at another area of the world. Where are you wanting to take us,
We are going now in what we call Middle East. And we have a very interesting story with someone who is a doctor that is passionate to work in front line. He is Michael von Horsten. And he is reporting now report from Mosul, let's say that from Mosul. And we will see this report.
We're currently in Hassan Shamyutu camp, 25 kilometers east of Mosul. The name Mosul brings up images in your head, I'm pretty sure, of some of the bloodiest fighting in the history of the planet. I've just come from the front line over the last 2 days, and I can tell you what you see in the media is what's on the ground. It's some of the most gory, most bloody fighting and most horrific atrocities I've ever seen in my entire life. We're currently here to serve a population of 100,000 people who have fled the fighting, 20,000 children. They're stranded in camps 25 kilometers east of the fighting with minimal medical services. And ADRA and Adventist Help have collaborated to provide a comprehensive medical service to this population. We're currently serving all 5 camps east of Mosul, a collective population of 100,000 people, and I'm filling a really crucial gap in medical service delivery here. There are no emergency services on the ground, there are no inpatient facilities on the ground. We are now providing a 45-bed hospital and a 9-bed emergency room, as well as a comprehensive primary care unit as well, with a mental health facility as well. We're really, really excited to be on the ground to serve a population as ravaged as this one. And just seeing the patients come in on a day-to-day basis just reminds me that we're meant to be here. I've just seen a child, a 9-year-old boy, come in who survived being tortured by ISIS. He's got electric burn marks all over his body from where he was shocked by ISIS. We have women coming in that have lost their husbands. We have parents coming in who've lost their children. people who've been kept as slaves by ISIS, who've been raped, who've seen their children decapitated, who've had their family members thrown off buildings, who've seen people being crucified in the streets on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't get more horrific than Mosul. And over the last 3 months, we've managed to put together quite a comprehensive facility that will be providing services to this population for a few years to come. And for us, it's one of the biggest privileges that we can have to be able to serve a population as desperate as this one. Thank you to every single one of you who've supported us out here, and we're looking forward to being able to provide you more updates from the field.
The thing with Michael, to me, is such a personal story, and I follow him on Facebook. And 1 minute he's in Mosul and he's working really hard there. That clip came from the middle of the time when the Iraqis were trying to push ISIS Daesh out of Mosul. So there were a lot of casualties, a lot of injuries going on. The next minute, I see him in Asia or I see him in Africa somewhere, and he just spends his life, his passion is helping people, and that's kind of what motivates me, what motivates you, Corrado. Just
yes. We met him in Lesbos, for example. He was sick. He was maybe 38, 39 degrees, was fever, cold, and he was just close to the shore, welcoming the people and help the people come up from this zodiac and helping them. This is really something that touched me a lot. This is Michael.
Well, that was Michael. We're going to move on very rapidly with 2 more reports. We're going to stay in the Middle East. We're going to go to hear the story of a Syrian refugee, and then we're going to go to a playground in Beirut, Lebanon, and see what the church is doing there to help children with their education.
We are everywhere. But we didn't decide to come here. One day we were playing out in the garden. The next one, there were no garden. And today, I don't have anyone to play with. We came looking for shelter. Nothing more. My family planned to go back. But today, we only ask for a little help. To get back on our feet. If you could, just put yourself in my shoes. I'm sure there is someone like me near you.
I'm standing here in the heart of Beirut, Lebanon, where we have an incredible connection with Syrian refugees, and today I have a special guest with me. Elder Ted Wilson from the World Headquarters is here, and just spending a little time with me, and I'm really glad you're here with me.
It's just a delight to be here. Well, it's so important to be a real witness for God in helping people and being able to interact in a very personal way. What's happening right here in this very special project is a typical example of interacting with people on a very day-to-day basis, helping young people to better their lives and to understand that God has a plan for them. So the kinds of things that the church is involved with in the Middle East are many of those types of things, helping people relate to what's practical in terms of living out our faith every day.
You know, you just spent a few minutes interacting with the children here in the school, different classrooms. What did you think about these bright young children as you saw them today?
Well, you can see the vitality in their lives, and many of them are very responsive. They want to tell you what they're going to be in life. They tell you what they enjoy. There's a spark to them. And in a very changeable situation, especially as a refugee, many times life can become very oppressive. But this kind of a school, this kind of an environment, the kind of relationship with the teachers, the modeling that they see of how Christ can work in a life and help people to become more aware of what God wants them to do, that has to have a long-lasting effect on many of these young people. And I just praise God for dedicated people who are helping not only teach intellectually, but helping young people emotionally, spiritually find true meaning in life.
So that's the Adventist Learning Centre in Beirut, Lebanon. It's a school that was running before the refugee crisis started, and now it's running both with Lebanese children and now with Syrian refugees. So there's a mixture there, which I guess, Igor, is kind of something you've got used to here in Serbia with the kind of children you're working with.
True, especially in the last, 18 months, basically. Children are the ones who are losing most when simply robbed of their normalcy, of the normal life flow, let's say. The ability to go to schools, to formal education, to build their knowledge, skills. Of course, one of the things that Corrado said, or Jonathan was the one saying we are taking for granted is access to education. It's like a legacy of the civilization. But once you are robbed of it, all of a sudden you understand how much you are vulnerable and basically disabled for any kind of chance in the future, or your chances are dropping low. So investing in formal education, or in investing efforts in enabling the connection of this group with the formal education and all the supporting activities for them to be able to keep going to school, not to drop out, is very critical. I think that's the most important thing we are doing in Serbia, and I think everybody else working in education, involving children or adults, would confirm. And it's not the accident that one of the key areas of ADRA International is education.
Yeah, and it's one of the areas where ADRA struggles sometimes from one place to another, because here you've managed to work with the government to integrate in schools. In some camps, like in Uganda, we've seen informal schools starting up under trees. Corrado and we were in a camp where we were told the authorities will not allow you to have a classroom here.
Yes.
So you can have informal education, but if you call it school, you can't do it. And you know, that's a real challenge. Okay, we need to move on in our journey, and one thing we've not talked about yet is where does the money come from? Corrado, you're a rich man.
Normally, hey, Corrado, don't give money. Normally, we have a common question, what I can do? And we can have a list of maybe action that we can do in order to be supportive of this kind of items, issues. You know? In Portugal, they had an idea, very interesting. Let's see what they had in Portugal. what I can do. And in Portugal, we see that they are climbing the highest mountain in 28 countries. Is correct, Joao?
Yes, that's right. These two young people, they decided to go to climb all the 28 highest mountains of the 28 countries in the EU. So they still are not counting on Brexit, so they will still go to the UK. And for each meter that they climb, they are collecting €1 for each meter. So the sum of all these mountains is 54,000 meters. So they are planning to get 54,000 euros for the project that we are visiting here, actually, here in Serbia for the community center. They have came here some time ago, they have visited, they have worked here as volunteers, they got to know the people, the refugees that are here, they got to know the team, and so they are very motivated and committed to support this center here.
Igor, so they are raising money for Serbia, for a project here in Serbia. How do you feel? What you are doing with this money?
Let's first it come, then well, it helps us keep helping people in all these areas that our community center is working in. I would like to highlight something. As someone introduced this part of our conversation, we need the money for all we are doing. And there you realize how much creativity and initiative of people of all kinds is crucial. Because this is kind of intriguing thing they suggested, and it attracts attention, and then people find out that it's not only interesting and adventurous, but also something contributing to concrete actions. So I admire them and many others who I know are thinking about similar things. So if you are watching this, and keep tracking what's going on with Pedro and Costa. Pray for their safety also, it's important, because they need to reach 54,000.
Or you're in trouble.
Yes. And if the money keeps coming, we are sending them to Himalaya or something. So we have extra mountains.
And if it goes up to 100,000 euros, you won't complain?
No. It will be difficult to manage, but we'll accept it.
Yeah. And personally, I've committed to climb in Denmark and the Netherlands with them, and you're climbing with them in Switzerland, I understand.
It's 3,000 meters. So why not?
Yeah, I think that often sometimes when people think of these things, they think of money. And money is a great thing. ADRA and these projects need money. But often money is insulation. It's easier to give money than give yourself. And as Christians, sometimes we hide behind prayer because it's easier to pray that God might meet a friend's needs than for us to be the solution when God has already placed us here with the resources to be the solution. So I think that we need to look beyond money as well when we look at resources. We need to look at ourselves. You challenged us earlier, Victor, by learning 2 people's names. If we all did that, then we could have a bigger impact than what money could have alone.
And that leads us very, very nicely into our next segment, because we've talked about fundraising, and this isn't a fundraising program, but by all means, give. Just go on the website and give. It's no problem. But some people give by action. And for the last 2 years, over the Christmas New Year period, young people from the Adriatic area, principally Croatia, have taken 2 weeks of their life, and instead of all the Christmas goodies and partying and what we normally do at Christmas, overeating, they have gone to Greece and they have spent time 2 weeks in a refugee camp, helping with projects, getting their hands dirty, getting on the ground with the refugees. From the last time they went over this Christmas, Tiamir Lipoha, I've probably pronounced his surname wrong, but he's the head of mission for ADRA in Greece, and he just wanted to say thank you. So this next report is Tiamir talking about these Croatian young people and their personal involvement, their sacrifice.
Katomilja Hospitality Settlement, naselje koje smo mi ovdje izgradili u zadnjih godinu dana za prijem izbjeglica i imigranata. u ovakvim privremenim smještajima, oni se nalaze dok ne riješe svoj status i putovanje kuda će dalje. Trenutačno ih je 270 osoba, znači od djece, male, obitelji, žena iz različitih su zemalja, 13 nacionalnosti imamo, najmnogobrojniji su Sirijci i Iračani, zatim iz Afganistana i Pakistana, a onda dalje ima čak iz Nižera, iz Eritreje i tako dalje. Jako smo vam zahvalni svi zajedno, i ja i moj tim, a ja mislim da ponajviše i sami korisnici, jer već sam čuo, čim sam ulazio u kamp malo prije, već sam čuo dobre glasove o vama, znači radosni su što ste tu, što imate programe s njima, razne, a pogotovo što se sa djecom bavite i igrate i učite ih i tako dalje. I eto, sasvim praktično vidio sam tamo, Slavica sa ovim ženama govori, upućuje ih u određene, ajmo reći, vještine sa ovim modernim digitalnim veš mašinama. I prošle godine kad ste bili i ove godine kad ste došli, vidi se značajna razlika. Vidimo osmijeh na licima ljudi.
Sometimes refugees just turn up on our doorstep, and when that happens, we kind of have to get involved. We've got Daryl. You've been hiding behind the scenes, actually on all 3 refugee Sabbaths, including today. But you've actually got quite involved in the refugee program. We're going to play a clip of ADRA in Dunkirk, and while it's playing, you and Corrado were very much involved with it. So just tell us something about it.
In Dunkirk, it's only really 2 hours away from my local church at Newbold, even though it's a different technical division in in the Adventist way of organizing things. But I went there to do a little bit of an anthropological research on the kind of people that were coming to those refugee camps, and while there, I thought, I ought to invite my men's prayer group to join me and do a little bit of help on the ground, because there was just a lady and a very small church that was really helping the refugees there. That turned into quite an adventure, really, because since 2015, almost every Sunday, a group from Newbold, my church in the UK, would drive down with the
fruits
is
getting
and
up
vegetables.
at 4 o'clock on a Sunday morning.
Exactly, so that's
your
commitment.
day off.
The day off, they go.
As a matter of fact, I remember one of the Sundays it was Valentine's Day, and we thought let's let our wives go there instead of celebrating Valentine's. So I remember going on a Friday.
Romance.
I remember going on a Friday. Well, this is where the romance comes in. I went on a Friday and bought about 1,000 roses. Red roses, and trimmed it, and it was nicely set, and gave it to all our wives to go on the refugee camp and give it as a gesture of peace and friendship to the women who were on those refugee camps. Now, those refugee people did not understand what Valentine's Day meant, but it sure stirred their emotions in their hearts to see that people cared enough for them to offer them a rose. And that's just, I could go on and on about stories from Dunkirk, but maybe the video here.
Let's just play the video while we're talking. And Corrado, this isn't really my journey so much, it's your journeys, because you were very involved, particularly with ADRA Dunkirk, which is the local church.
Yes, we can see now what is on the screen, the report of ADRA Dunkirk.
But while it's playing, just tell us your interaction with, I forgot the lady's name.
Claudette. Now, yes?
Yes.
Why not? Yes. Claudette is a little lady, powerful lady. She is really extraordinary. She is in contact with the authority in Dunkirk, and the authority understood that she's so passionate, but also, let's say, she has a determination to go ahead. She has perseverance also to help the refugees. So I write sometimes to her to say, what is happening in your in your town now regarding the refugees, and they give me a report saying, they would like to push the refugees out from this center, and where they are going? They are going in the bush, the wood. But it's winter, yes. And what you are doing? She said me, we are preparing our cars with a lot of material, and just help them to be rescued. But unfortunately, the authority doesn't want. So what this is Claudette. She fight against the authorities. So she is so energetic that she help the people that are in trouble to find little solutions, but she cannot find all the solutions. So yesterday, she brought me an email. 2 days ago, sorry. She brought me an email and said, Corrado, I'm sad because finally I saw families, 250 people in the bush with children, without water, without shelter, with the temperature, with raining. But she doesn't stop before this kind of difficulties. So she continued to work. Yes, she go a little bit a step over. And one young man, 18 years old, finally, he was alone. And what she did? She invited him to come at home. So, and now this guy, he's living with them. He's a Pakistani. He lost his family. He lost the contact with the families, papa, mama, etc. He lost the contact. You can imagine the mood, the feeling. But he has not hope to meet again the family, and he consider Claudette his mama, and she's taking care for him and not only for him. So just to say, this is ADRA Dunkirk. This is Claudette. This is what is happening around this area that were under the spotlight for a long time.
And I can tell, actually, although you're hosting this program with me, you're actually very, very passionate about that Dunkirk program. Yes. We saw the report of what happened up until April 2017, and then you've told us personally the challenges since. Daryl as well, you're going to come back and join us again in a few minutes, but your passion for refugees has grown, and
being with them and interacting with them and hearing their stories of walking through miles and miles of distance and crossing waters, oceans, mountains on foot. This is not just a marathon. This is quite a lot more that they've had to go through, yes. And it's not, unfortunately, a lot of people think, oh, this must be all terrorists coming across. But, once you identify with them, you say, well, it could just be myself. If the tables were turned around, I could be in those shoes.
Exactly.
And if you're watching the live stream, I just have to say you're only watching it because Daryl actually is an engineer and a techie. He doesn't like talking on camera, but when it comes to refugees, he will talk till the cows come home. So thank you for sharing with us. We're now going to jump to a part of the world, we can't always go and help refugees directly, but some of the donor ADRA offices here in Europe, they send teams or they sponsor and hire locally. And so our next report, which comes from the Batwa people in Uganda, is a sponsorship between ADRA Austria and ADRA Sweden. And together they're doing something very, very important with a group of people that have been internally displaced in Uganda.
I am here right now, standing close to the border of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. It took us about an hour and a half in very rough roads and then another 45 minutes hiking up a very steep mountainside. The Batwa people is the most discriminated people group in East Central Africa. They have been chased out of the forest and are now a displaced people group in Uganda. ADRA has helped these people with the resettlement of about 38 Batwa families and purchased land for them so they can live with respect and dignity. Behind me is the land that ADRA has purchased for them. ADRA empowered the Batwa to have access to livelihoods including goats and potatoes and other vegetables to start a livelihood. ADRA also built a meeting place including 2 catchment tanks to capture water during the rainy season. Otherwise, people would have to walk about 2 to 3 hours to fetch water, and that is just one way, so about 4 hours both ways. ADRA is also working on the conservation of the Batwa people, preserving their culture and all their stories. The needs are still glaring. This area still lacks infrastructure, especially in education and in health. I'd like to thank ADRA Sweden, ADRA Austria, ADRA International for your continued support for the Batwa people. The needs are still great and we still need your help so ADRA can continue to serve the Batwa people, the most discriminated people group in East Central Africa. Again, this is Charles from Uganda, right here in Kisoro. God bless.
So that's the Batwa people in Uganda. João, you need to help me here. I'm not the professional in terms of NGOs and refugees and all of these things. Just explain to me, these people are not refugees.
Yeah, that's right. They are IDPs, which is internal displaced people. If we look at the numbers that we were referring to during this day of about 65 million people, out of these 65 million people, only 25 million are really refugees that need to flee from one country to another. 40 million, they are IDPs, which means that they are still in the same country where they have fled to. It's like that if we were here in Belgrade and we had to run to Novi Sad or somewhere else here inside of...
People might like to run to Novi Sad, it's a nice city.
And quite often, when we are IDPs is when we have less protection. If you are a refugee, you have some kind of, you have international law, the international treaties that somehow they protect you from, and they oblige the states that host these persons, these individuals, to be supported. But if you are an IDP, you are under the same sovereignty, and so the state is responsible for them. If the state is against that culture, and that's also one of the reasons for the Rohingyas crisis, it's a problem if you are in the same country, because you are persecuted inside your very same country. And on that case, the international law is not applicable, and so we have to rely on the NGOs and on those that are working, like our good colleagues in Uganda are doing with these IDPs. Actually, I had the privilege to work in one of these contexts as well in the past, and I can tell you that the way these persons have to live inside the same country without any kind of protection, being persecuted by their own selves, so by their own people, it's very, very, very damaging for themselves as well.
And we'll hear a report later on from the Yemen as well, where it's a very similar situation. Jonathan?
Sure. You know, I'm in addition to people who are internally displaced people because of political strife, there is also, you know, millions that are internally displaced people because of war. And we need to understand the devastation of this, because these are the people who provide normal industry, who are part of the fabric of society, who are farmers and so forth. So what we're seeing is an increase in famine, a decrease in the economy, which is devastating these countries with this number of internally displaced people. That's creating huge amounts of food insecurity into the future because nobody's there to plant the crops.
Which is a challenge. Let's move. We've been in Africa. Let's come back to Europe. This is a story now, actually, that I wasn't expecting to be able to show you some video for. I knew the story, and I contacted my friends in the Netherlands, and I said, please, this church is doing something good with the local refugees. Please share the story. They said, no, it didn't happen. And then suddenly, just on a smartphone, somebody did it and sent it to us. So this is not kind of the top quality of television journalism, but for me it's actually very moving what the Meppel Church in the Netherlands is doing, because it found some people whose names it needed to do. Let's go to the Netherlands.
We picked up a project for refugees. Refugees come from all over the world to Holland, and they are divided in certain cities. Especially in our city, we picked up the program to prepare the houses that are there for them. The houses are mostly in a bad shape, but as a church, as a team, we all come together. We try to rebuild and to put furniture in the homes of these people. As a result, the people are very thankful, of course, but they come also to our church services. And now we have several families who are very thankful and who were in a very big need. And as for them, as they said it, we are like angels. And this is how we try to help them in our community.
Hi! Hello everyone, I am Joram Bruins. I am a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Meppel in the Netherlands. I help this woman with doing her study for healthcare for disabled people. I help her doing her homework, and I also help her to improve her Dutch. And my mother takes care of the children when she goes to school. So, what's your name?
Hello everybody, my name is Molly Ivy. There are many ways God sends people into your life, and Joram Bruins is one of the miracles that happened to me. Yes, you have helped me so much with my study, and I have improved also with my language, the Netherlands.
What's your plan for the future?
Well, I hope to be a better person than I am today. I work and I'm studying healthcare and working with disabled people. I really hope that I can be of help to be a blessing to the Netherlands in the future, and to be good with my children and do the work of God.
Fact that here are people that have made a connection just because it's there, and then the people they made friends with say, you are like angels. And then you see that young man helping the education of somebody older than him, and it's just happening, it's just coming together. And again in these reports we're realizing education is one of the keys, which is why I want to take you to this next report. We're going back to Uganda. This report, when I watched it, it made me cry, because you see the cutting edge of how education needs to happen, and a school where they actually desperately need to have more resources.
Ramwanja Secondary School is located in a multicultural community serving both nationals and refugees, mainly from Congo. Due to overwhelming numbers of refugees settling in the area, refugee students have increasingly joined Ramwanja, being the only secondary school in the settlement. With this, the general population of school has greatly doubled, putting a strain on the available facilities. This has resulted in 2 study rooms serving the same purpose as dormitories.
We have our library currently being used for the boys' accommodation. We have one of the classrooms being used for the girls' accommodation. The parents did raise some money to construct some dormitory, one block for the girls' accommodation, but still incomplete.
It is within this context that ADRA Uganda, in partnership with LDS Charities through ADRA International, came up to support the school by putting up more boarding facilities for students to reside in the school comfortably.
We think that if we have two structures, the bigger one hosting the girls, 100, and the smaller one for the boys, because the girls are more vulnerable.
However, the gap is still wide as the school critically lacks a dining hall. The kitchen too is in a very bad condition. After serving food, students move to their dormitories, while others find shelter under trees to eat their meals.
We have a temporary kitchen. Temporary is that in a sense that it's just made of what mud and what. There is no dining hall. The students get food and take to their rooms where they sleep. Anyway, under the trees, and that one can complicate discipline.
Access to education is considered a human basic right, and by donating to this cause, children gain human and social development for a brighter future.
Next story is a personal testimony. Is the story of Flora coming from Venezuela. Now she lives in Finland, but his story is very touching because she lived very particular difficulties. She was victim of violence, sexual violence, and now she lives in Finland, and she would like to give us this personal testimony. We will see what she said us.
Hi, my name is Flor Salazar. I'm 20 years old. I was born and raised in Venezuela. When I was 10 years old, I realized how dangerous my country can be. I grew up listening words like murder, sexual assault, kidnapping, and if you put all those words together and you ask me, that sounds like a normal day in Venezuela. Things got worse and worse around 2010 because our government is not really caring about us. Nowadays, there's hyperinflation, people can't afford food, there's no medicine in hospital, and basic services like water, electricity, or even public transportation are not working, and people are running away by sea, by air, or just walking. But not even that has been capable to take away my faith in God. I came here with my cousin, as many Venezuelans has gone to other countries, looking for a better future for me and for my family that is still in Venezuela. The first week I spent here in Finland, I told myself, girl, you must be in heaven, so you have to be thankful to God because of that. I decided I wanted to be part of ADRA Soup Kitchen and Senior Care because it was my way to pay God for His blessing, even if I know I would never do anything valuable enough to pay it. I'm here, but I have no idea what is God's plans for me. Perhaps right now I'm here to tell you that you are blessed, even if you feel that you just have a little. I think one of the most important things in life is being thankful, because when we forget what God has done for us, we become arrogant. Love your work, hug your family, express what you feel for your beloved ones. Just thank God and try to enjoy little things in life, even the weather, even great days, and even when you're suffering, because there's a lot of knowledge in pain.
What I really like about Flora's story is that she left a difficult world. She left a world of hyperinflation, and we've been hearing about that on the news, that the Venezuelan economy is collapsing. She left a world, and maybe we should just clarify, not that she had suffered sexual violence, but she lived in an environment where that was continuously happening. But when she got to Finland, she wanted to give back. And I think I've seen that with quite a few people that have been displaced, moved to other areas, had to start their lives again. Quite a few of them end up working with NGOs because they want to give back because of what has happened to them. The other thing that strikes me, and this takes us into our next report, last year we were in Italy, and I actually, to be honest, went there slightly cynically, because the previous year we'd been in Greece and it was Syrian and Afghanistani and Iraqi refugees that were coming in, and we knew that they were in a desperate plight. And I'm thinking, you know, those coming up from sub-Saharan Africa, why can't they just stay where they are and improve their life where they are? But sometimes it changes when the story happens. This week, Corrado, that story is still continuing, isn't it? The crossing the Mediterranean.
Yes, this is the story. Yes, continue the story. We have all the newspaper with the same title. They are migrants, refugees coming from South Sahara, trying to approach Europe. They remain on the boat, on the Zodiac. So this story of this boat that is plenty of 700 people is very sad. Now, if I read well, they approach in Spain.
They're going to Valencia.
Yes,
that's
in
right.
Spain. So, but they were refused by my country. Okay, this is not the time.
But the reality is, and it doesn't matter the country and the politics, they've only made the news because a country has refused to accept them. And yet these attempts at migration are happening all the time. Let's just go to Castle Volturno, where we were on World Refugee Sabbath last year, and play you just a little bit of the beginning of our experience there, and then I'm going to invite Corrado to come back and
Daryl.
Sorry, Daryl. Yes, we'll
Yeah.
invite him. Yes, and to talk a little bit more about our experience.
It's something that sometimes I love to talk about it, sometimes I don't like to talk about it, because when I'm saying it, I'm crying. Sometimes I'll be happy that I'm still alive, because many of my mates that came with me could not make it.
In Ghana, for the first time, I'm a furniture master, but during the month, I can never get anything. So I decided to go to my village and work as a farmer. As time goes on, these things I am using to take care of my family, the money cannot do anything in life.
I didn't purposely leave Nigeria just because I'm going to Libya to work. My mother, she's not a Christian, so she's the kind of gods they worship. So when she died, they're kind of telling me to pick up from where she stopped. So I said, in this 21st century, I can't be worshiping what my mother's worship. So I thought of it, being in Nigeria or staying in Nigeria, there's no hiding place for me in Nigeria. So I said, okay, let me run to Libya, because that is kind of a little bit closer to Nigeria.
I left home because the situation at home was very tough. My father, he used to work. Suddenly, he started sick. Can't go to work. My mom, the same thing. I was illegal married, and my children, illegal married. Then my husband left. He ran away. Then I waited for him for 2 years plus. He didn't come, nothing. Then I was selling rice, doing a lot of business. But it was very tough, no assistance. To pay house rent is a problem. To pay my children's school fees is a problem. Then I decided to go.
Dario, this interview was in Castel Volturno, but the story started a little bit earlier in another place.
Further south.
Yes, further south. Where would start this story?
Well, this started really in Lampedusa, a little island south of Sicily.
Yes.
And a lot of those refugees from West Africa would come up to Libya and were quite comfortable in Libya working. until the Gaddafi regime went pear-shaped, and the country's main industry in Libya was petroleum, of course, and when a lot of their installations were blown up, they turned to slavery. Would you believe? Slavery as their main industry. And they used a lot of these people who came from West Africa, because for them at that time, it was really the El Dorado of Africa. This was where it was a very rich country. They could get a great job. And while in Lampedusa, we talked to a few people coming across, and a lot of them were well educated. You know, some were IT specialists and so on, but they were telling us about atrocious stories of having ironclads around their necks and shackles, not being able to drink water, and really being treated as slaves, and they were being traded as a commodity from owner to owner. That really shocked us. But furthermore, what shocked us was walking through a cemetery.
Yeah.
I had no words for that, but we were walking. We were in Lampedusa at like a little Airbnb, and the owner of the Airbnb happened to be very caring for refugees, and would go out of her way to help them. And she gave us a little tour of this cemetery and said, over here, this is a 16-year-old who came drowned, and over there, this is another young person. We just don't know their name, and yet we want to give her proper burial. That was so emotional to go through there. And also to walk by the football field. You remember there were a stack of boats that were just that was just left there. And we climbed in one of them, and we figured out, what is it like to be 3-4 days stuck in this boat, not seeing light, not seeing
100
air,
people,
and with a mixture of diesel, human excrement, and so on. It was just awful story.
And with the full video that you can see on YouTube, you hear some of those testimonies in a little bit more detail. But take us up to Castel Volturno, and ADRA has got involved there, because it's still a very poor part of Italy.
Yeah.
And yet these people need a livelihood just as much as here in Serbia.
Yes, and in Castel Volturno, somebody take care for them, and they gave them the opportunity to work and to learn. So, which is the project that they had?
So yes, a person there decided, it's an interesting mafia story, really.
Yeah, sure.
Just be careful.
In that this person, through the government, got access to land and houses that was initially owned by the mafia, and he turned this into a place where those refugees could work and feel dignity and feel ownership of what they were able to accomplish. And so they were taught very skilled ways of planting certain products, and a lot of those refugees felt empowered to say, oh, I can take this knowledge and go back to my original country.
Exactly, this is.
And that was fantastic.
Yes.
A fantastic idea.
One of them, they said that I would like to back at home and to start my personal factory. Wow, it was fantastic.
Yeah. So that's empowerment.
Yeah.
Let's go back and play just the end of the story, because one of the things that struck me as well there, we were actually in a church, and the people coming there, some of them were Christians, some of them were Adventists before they even started their journey. Mm-hmm. Some of them became Christians en route because they suddenly found we've got to depend on somebody. We're in desperate circumstances. And quite a number of them became Christians once they arrived there and they found that there was a community that was warm and welcoming. So at the end of this 14-minute interview, and we're just playing you short clips from it, they talk to us about their faith and their God.
So you were just hanging on to something? And
nothing, it's just I was...
You're just swimming?
I don't know how to swim, but the jacket I was putting on then is not jacket, it's just God. I can't explain. Well, all I know is I fell in the sea. I didn't go down and I'm not up. But I know that is the miraculous work of God.
I decided to continue to Italy. So when I saw the boat, it's not like that first one. The first one is small, but it takes 120 people. But this one I saw, it can take more than 500 people. That boat brought me to Italy safely without seeing anything. I'm enter Lampedusa, and I step my leg from the boat to the land. I say, God, you're a grateful God. You are a caretaker of my life.
For now, I don't have a job for now, but sometimes, like, I'm happy I came to this church. A brother brought me to this church when I came earlier. So there's the lady I took as my mother here. She's working for Italian. So when they call her for work and she's busy, she will call me, then I will go there and clean. That is what I'm doing for now, is a partial, but for now, I've not gotten a permanent work that I'm doing.
Because I'll come here to find my life, but I'll come into here to find the job. But the job is not there. Any place where you go, I like that place, and it's because of the God. The Bible says, everything will get it is for God. Anything if you come into your life, is for God. You put everything to the God, and then God will help you to do anything.
The way I survived in Italy here, in fact, only God knows what I'm saying. I have suffered a lot. As Paul said, I'll forget what
lies behind.
Yes, and I focused right in front of me.
My hope now, I'm depending on God because there's nothing God cannot do. Well, it's not by my prayer. When I go out, sometimes I'm not working, I'm in camp. When I go out, some white will just call me. They'll just give me 10 euro, 5 euro. That is how I survive. Sometimes when I still come, I'll still pay my tithes. But I'm believing God for a job. I'm alive, I'm very happy because it's not many of my mates could not make it. It's not become a part of me till I die. I won't forget. I said death come, that is when I will take it from my heart. Just the way I am. It's a story that I will always tell my children. When I give birth, this is how I'm going to see them and I tell them this is how I succeeded to make sure that I gave you people a good life.
You just cry to God, pray to God and hope, believe. Not only pray, but when you pray, believe that God will do it for you some days. It might take time. I used to say it might take time, but God will grant you your request.
You know I love children, and this is the future. This is one of the refugee babies, and I love her already. And the reality is that she's here, whatever the reasons, and here's her twin brother as well, and isn't he beautiful? And we've been celebrating and listening to their stories all day. We're looking to the future. We've heard the emotion, we've heard the negatives and the positives. We've learned a lot about faith in God, and I have to tell you, it's done something to my emotions to hear the faith that people have through difficult circumstances.
So the refugees, migrants arrive in this part of the world. What we can do with them? What we can give them? So we have to experience now the stories, very interesting, one from Spain, another from Germany. Some people take care for them because they had some ideas. And one of these, Germany, is the realization of a dream. Sometimes it needs only one dream, one person, and a lot of people can enjoy. So we will see now Spain and Germany projects.
España es una de las puertas de Europa, de personas que huyen del hambre y las sequías de países africanos. En estos últimos años ha aumentado la llegada de personas que huyen de los conflictos políticos o bélicos en su país. ADRA España mantiene su compromiso por la igualdad y la integración de la población que llega hasta nuestro territorio.
Las razones por las que dejé mi país es por la situación difícil que vivimos actualmente. El motivo de mi llegada a España es
para buscar un mejor futuro para mi hija. Y actualmente, bueno, estoy en ADRA realizando cursos de formación para poder encontrar un empleo.
ADRA actúa en más de 90 delegaciones, donde desarrolla programas que atienden las necesidades básicas de familias y personas. También se ofrecen talleres de vida saludable, nutrición equilibrada, así como orientación sobre recursos sociales y laborales.
Cuando llegué a España, yo he trabajado en construcción, he trabajado en jardinería. Ahora tengo papeles y agradezco a ADRA por el curso de formación que me está dando para mejorar mi situación laboral en España.
El trabajo de las delegaciones se realiza con la participación de 955 voluntarios y voluntarias. En el último año han atendido a más de 35.000 personas. Además, ADRA gestiona centros de atención sociolaboral en diferentes ciudades. El año pasado se atendieron a más de 1.200 personas provenientes de países no europeos.
Yo vine aquí a España porque mi marido trabaja en España. Yo tengo 2 niños, un hijo y una hija.
Tengo una niña de 6 años y vengo de Marruecos y ahora estoy viuda.
Yo ahora en ADRA estudiando para buscar trabajo.
Estoy aquí con ADRA para ayudarme a hablar español y para mejorar la vida y para encontrar un trabajo.
Los profesionales facilitan el proceso de integración en la sociedad de acogida. Se ofrece orientación social, laboral, jurídica, talleres y formación orientada al empleo.
Llegué hace 3 años y medio a España como turista. Luego me quedé irregular. Para poder trabajar necesitaba prepararme, pues ADRA ha ayudado a prepararme en algunos cursos, en el cual me ha ayudado a obtener algunos trabajos y pues también ahí me ha ayudado para poder tramitar mi trámite de permiso de residencia, el cual estoy muy cerca y espero pronto poderlo obtener.
ADRA trabaja por la dignidad, igualdad y participación de las personas sin distinción de sexo, credo o nacionalidad en la sociedad española.
We're going to bring you the German report in a couple of minutes, but let me just say to you, I'm so impressed. 950 volunteers in Spain. Jonathan, that's a very impressive number. Do you replicate that in every country that?
Well, I mean, currently ADRA has around 15,000 volunteers around the globe. But really what it shows you is what we spoke about earlier. You know, money is easy and it's an installation, but when you give of yourself. And Spain has been a great example of that, of when individuals have felt a compassion, a compelling sense within themselves to actually make a difference of those outside of themselves, that it's really, it just is hugely impactful. It's the most important thing. What people need in moments of distress is they need a human touch.
And that human touch, if we'd watched the programme this morning, these lovely people behind me and behind, with smiles on their faces, because they've got that human touch working together with people. These are ADRA staff, but we also constantly need volunteers to get involved, whether it's with ADRA, whether it's with Adventist Help, whether it's with any other charity, or as you say, just with the neighbour next door. How do we?
Yeah, actually, the dynamics of Spain and a few other countries, especially from Southern Europe, is very interesting, because ADRA is very well connected with the local churches. And so many hundreds of volunteers from the local church, they are working every week for ADRA. Well, not for ADRA, but for the people that are in need in their own communities. In this case, it was refugees and migrants that are coming, but in some other cases, these are poor people on the communities, children that need support and they don't have any kind of support, people that have some kind of dependency on drugs or in alcohol or something. And so these church members, they are providing, and we really need, as a church, as Jonathan was mentioning, we really need to be more involved and give our time, give our talents. This is part of the social gospel. This is part of what we are. This is part of our DNA as Christians, as Seventh-day Adventist Church. So we really need to put our hands on the job and do something in favor of the ones that are around us.
And so giving our time is really important. We can now go to our report from Germany, where we see that happening, and it will immediately be followed by two very moving reports, and they're the ones we actually want to finish the program with, one from Yemen, and then the final report from ADRA in Belgium.
Anfang 2015, da wurden wir von der Stadt Bad Honnef als Adventgemeinde angeschrieben.
Early 2015, we were contacted by the municipality of Bad Honnef. They wanted to know if we would participate in a roundtable on the subject of refugees. As an Adventist church in Bad Honnef, we decided to engage in the integration issues. Thus, we had the idea of opening a cafe bar for refugees. On April 15, 2015, we had the official opening of Café International. I promised myself to actively participate in the project, so I attended the inaugural event. This project has become a kind of a child to me. We have established marvelous relationships with refugees. We are like a big family. Many people even call me mom. Here we open our hearts and no one is ashamed of anything. Even men let themselves be hugged. There is always good food to eat and healthy refreshments. Here you leave stressed out, and it's a joy to see each other every week. I cannot imagine a Wednesday afternoon without this appointment. The refugees thank us constantly and are always joyful and kind. They always offer us their help and are always available. We are really a big family.
My name is Ali.
My name is Ali. I'm 21 years old and I come from Pakistan. My father, who had a business, had to pay the mafia regularly. But one day they asked him too much money and he refused to pay. So they killed my family. It was terrible for me. I was 17 and did not know what to do. I was lucky to have been able to come here to Germany. 2.5 years ago, I became a Christian through baptism. I finished school and now I'm continuing to train for a job.
6 Monate später, ich habe mich taufen gelassen. Ich habe meinen Hauptschulabschluss geschafft und jetzt ich gehe weiter. Und ich suche jetzt im Moment Ausbildung.
I have lost everything in my country and now I'm getting everything back here in Germany.
Langsam ich bekomme alles wieder zurück.
Ich bin die Flora und ich bin
My name is Flora and I'm 15 years old. I arrived here thanks to my sister. It's nice to be able to make a lot of friends here and people are so open. It is nice to see children play with such happiness. It gives me a lot of happiness to be here. Hi, I'm Sonia. I am in Germany for 1 year. I come here every week and I'm happy to be here with my friends. Café International is a project of Together for Refugees, an initiative sponsored by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, by the non-profit organization Advent, and by Friedensau Theological Seminary and ADRA, Germany.
من 3 سنين من يوم نزحنا من صعدة وصار علي وليد هناك معه 5 جهال ولا قبالك مرحمة عيشة البلاء ما عاي يحمل بحتى البسكوت ولا كودحنا على العيش ولا معانا مرض ولا شي حرام ما أحد يبدي على الثاني بيده وبعدين كم حاجة البيت يا مصاريف يا سكر يا كنا بسعدنا وكل من كل واحدة حانا ما بش ما مش تمام حتى الماء قطعوا علينا ولا أبو شغل ولا معي جهة يزعوا ولا شيء به 3 متزوجين و4 عندي مدري 5 أيتام.
We are in Brussels, Belgium, and we are facing a huge crisis with refugees. We have in Belgium transit migrants who want to go in England, who are trying to go in England. But regarding the Belgian law, they have no right. I was completely touched by this situation. And I thought, okay, well, you have ADRA, you have a structure, you are a member of the church. What can you do for them?
One day the ADRA director came into my office and made me aware of a problem which was only 1.5–2 kilometers away from my office. People sleeping outside, not having a place to stay at night. And I jumped at the opportunity to actually collaborate with ADRA Belgium.
We have a citizen platform of Belgian people who want to be involved with refugees. As ADRA, we have joined them. Every evening, we are going to the park where the refugees are, and we are taking them to host families.
I mean, we are like 40,000 now, 40,000 students who decide that it was enough, and we wanted to give back the dignity to the migrants who are here.
Ce qui me vient à l'esprit, c'est que je me dis qu'on pourrait vraiment être à leur place, que ça peut nous arriver. Je pense que ça nous est déjà arrivé, mais qu'on l'a oublié, et que ça peut se reproduire, et que le confort, la sécurité dans laquelle nous nous trouvons, sont des choses qui sont extrêmement fragiles. Et je me dis, tiens, si nous, si ça nous arrivait, eh bien, on serait bien content que des gens nous accueillent. Voilà, c'est aussi simple que ça.
So, we arrive at the end of this journey. It was very interesting. And now we have time just for a last message. And I would like to ask to our guest to give us a last message regarding what we lived today and, of course, what you would like to say as a recommendation or a message to all of us.
Yeah, thank you, Corrado, for that opportunity. When God has created this world, there were no borders on it. These are artificial things created by man. All of us, we are created at God's image. So human dignity is not something that we can negotiate. Human dignity is something that is a gift from God. So nothing in this world gives me the right to step on the dignity of another human being. All the people that we have seen this afternoon, they have their own dignity, and it's my responsibility to defend them, to protect them, and to provide them with a better life, with whatever I have in my hands. Then let's God use it in favor of those around me.
Jonathan.
Now, 65 million people is an awful lot of people, and it seems almost insurmountable. But the reality is, what we've seen this afternoon is how individual people can make a difference. And I believe that each of us, if we took that responsibility, if we took that challenge to learn two names, if we took that challenge to just sit down and hear other people's stories, then we can be agents of change. You know, ADRA is the agency of the Seventh Adventist Church. I don't want a church of 20 million people to be proud of an agency. I want a church of 20 million people to see themselves as an agent of hope and healing in the brokenness that exists within this world. And then if we as Seventh Adventist Christians took that message to our neighbours and challenged them to live that life and to learn the names of two people, that is the beginning of a movement. And that is a movement that can change the world. And I believe that we don't have to tolerate all that exists in this world today if we would just step up and play our individual parts.
Igor.
I think the times we live in try to infuse us with fear. I think that's the largest danger we face. Fear of the other, fear of what high politics stands behind larger movements or whatever. But as far as I remember, that truth is that says love drives out all fear. And one can clearly think and plan and react only if driven by love. And this is what I hope will happen among people in this church and worldwide also. When love overpowers everything else, then it clears the mind and you know what to do. How to not to be strangled in high political analysis when it's time to react on a human being across yourself in a human way.
Thank you. So my little message. I have a motto, Victor. My motto is, my drop can make the difference. So I would add that all our drops can really make the difference around the world.
And it's been wonderful this afternoon. The thing that first inspired me when we came in to this centre this morning was to see this on the floor. The children were still finishing. It's made up of bottle tops. But the dove of peace there represents what ADRA, what we as individuals can do to change the world. As you said, if each of us just took a little bit of responsibility, if we share love and hope rather than fear and intolerance, all of that will make a difference. And it may be a drop in the ocean, but you know, the ocean is made up of many drops.
Exactly.
And that really does. We had the rain in Serbia yesterday. We saw many drops suddenly turn into a flood. We're glad for the sunshine today. It has been fantastic spending this day here in Serbia, in this community centre, meeting the staff, meeting the refugees, especially meeting the children. They're just lovely and so talented. You know, I really wish, Corrado, that this is the last time I see you.
Me too. Why?
Because this is our third Refugee Day. Wouldn't it be fantastic if we never, ever had to have another Refugee Day?
The same idea.
But if we carry on doing our bit, who knows what will happen? And even if the reality is that we're somewhere else next year, we're still doing the program.
Yes.
We're doing it because there are people that care and people that want to make a difference. We need to say thank you. There's a camera team around here, Zoom Media. There is ADRA Serbia. I guess we should thank you. You've done a lot for us today. It's actually been a pleasure to learn your story better. And thank you for hosting World Refugee Sabbath this year. Dream Media, we thank them for organizing and actually directing the program. Adventist Review, who've helped sponsor the program. The two divisions of the church in Europe that Corrado and I represent, they've also given financial support for this program to happen. And thank you to you for actually watching us. And we hope it's inspired you. We hope it's inspired you to get involved, whether that's by prayer, that's good. Whether it's your donations, Igor and the rest of the team here are willing to accept them. Whether it's your personal involvement and what you can do just to touch somebody else's life. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for following us. Thank you for going on the journey with us. And God bless you.